Good morning. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jess De Los Santos. It's the start of a new trading day, but first, let's go straight to our top story. The Finance Department expects the economy to return to pre-pandemic levels by next year and grow by at least 7.4%. The DOF says the government's growth target of 7 to 9% for 2022 will be achieved through the proper management of COVID-19 related risks and the calibrated gradual reopening of the economy. However, the Finance Department acknowledges that unemployment and poverty may remain high next year. The agency says that while there is a need to extend cash aid to the poor, the government needs to deliver a so-called delicate balancing to support the economy without getting broke. The DOF also says private investments are seen as a major growth driver in 2022. The Trade Department is pushing for NCR to shift to MECQ as soon as possible if no COVID surge persists. Trade Secretary Mon Lopez said moving to a looser MECQ from the strictest lockdown would allow government to better manage the economy with more business activities and people back to work. However, the OCTA research group is projecting that the strict MECQ could be extended at least in some areas. OCTA research fellow Guido David said the government's quick imposition of stricter lockdowns has already prevented a worse surge in the country. If not for the ECQ, David says the average new cases in Metro Manila alone could have hit 4,000. But while OCTA thinks the lockdown may be extended in some areas, David says they don't want to get ahead of themselves since any further decision should be backed by numbers. Okay, off to the markets we go. A REIT-filled day at that, with developments on three real estate trust companies. Let's start with FilREIT, which, as we speak, has already started trading. If you can just show the chart right here, at least you can see FilREIT starting off the day in the green here, up as much as 0.4% so far. That's 7 pesos and 3 centavos a piece. That, of course, is already an increase from their offer price of 7 pesos a share. Just a few minutes ago, the bell already rang for FilREIT during their listing ceremony. Again, offer price for FilREIT is at 7 pesos a share with base offer of 1.6 billion common shares and an over-allotment option of as much as 163.4 million common shares. FilREIT eyes to raise up to 12.6 billion pesos in gross proceeds. Portfolio includes 17 Grade A office buildings totaling 300,000 square meters of gross leasable area. Majority of those 16 buildings, to be exact, are located at the North Gate Cyber Zone in Philinvest City, Alabang, while one is at the Cebu IT Park in Lahug City, Cebu. BPI Capital and UBS AG Singapore are joint global coordinators and book runners. Again, as you can see here, FilREIT at least starting on a good footing here, up as much as 0.9% now at 7 pesos and 6 centavos a share. FilREIT is the third REIT to list on the stock exchange after Ayala Land's REIT and Double Dragon's DDMP REIT. Now, but more will be following suit, one of which is Robinson's Land's commercial REIT. The PSE has given the go signal for the REIT offer, which puts on the table some 3.34 billion common shares for a maximum price of 7 pesos and 31 centavos each. Over allotment option is a 305 million common shares, ideally raising RCR, that's going to be their ticker, as much as 26.7 billion pesos. Offer period is expected to begin this month, August 25 until September 3, with listing scheduled close to a month from now on September 14. Now, portfolio includes 14 commercial properties with a gross leasable area of 425,000 square meters. That spans key business districts here in Ortigas, Makati, and BGC, as well as areas in Cebu and Davao. Another one that's looking to list soon would have to be MREIT, or that of Mega Worlds. It also just secured PSC approval to put an offer 1 billion secondary shares at 22 pesos a piece with over allotment option of 161.7 million common shares. MegaWorld hoping to raise 26.3 billion pesos. Enough of REITs for now. At least let's take a look at the main index. If FilREIT is starting in the green here, can say the same here for the main index. You have here the PSEI down by 0.7%, now at 6,622.99. That, of course, is a reversal of the rally that we saw yesterday when shares climbed 0.7% as investors factored in the 11.8% growth in the second quarter, which Christina Ulang of First Metro caused a sentiment lifter, apparently. We'll add to that a good earnings showing, which might signal that the economy is capable of making a rebound helped by vaccination and stimulus. Again, the index so far this morning down 0.6%. That comes ahead of the central bank meeting later today, where expectation is that they will keep benchmark interest rates at a record low as the economy continues to be battered by the pandemic. Jokno has pledged to keep policy accommodative for as long as necessary. Looking at our leaders and laggards today, however, you'd see here a number of stocks at least making headway here. FGen is leading the pack here, up 2.6%. There's also GT Capital in the green here, up 0.8%. However, on the downside here, you'd see LT Group, one of our big losers so far, down 2% here. Note that they have reported first half net income sinking by as much as 63% to 6.3 billion pesos due to higher provisioning for credit losses and the elimination of gains from the transfer of real estates. Tobacco business still lion's share of earnings here for LTG at 8.97 billion pesos, followed by Tanduay at 602 million pesos. Again, the index starting in the red so far, down 0.8%. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Trade Department says 2 pharmaceutical companies are now in final talks with the government to set up local vaccine production in the country. Trade Secretary Mon Lopez identified one of the companies as Lloyd Laboratories, which has a manufacturing plant in Malolos, Bulacan. The company is among 8 groups that showed interest in vaccine manufacturing. Several are in the process of signing partnerships with overseas tech providers. Lopez added that up to 4 of them are keen to start operations immediately. Licenses for local vaccine manufacturing will be processed within 20 days once approved. Under a green lane, the FDA is also required to assist the firms through the entire listing process. At least a dozen business and advocacy groups have called on the Philippine government to regulate vehicles and expand clean energy use. This is in response to a United Nations warning about the irreversible effects of climate change. The UN called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report as a code red for humanity. The report warned that the planet could pass the critical global warming limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius within 2 decades. In response, the Green EDSA movement, which is supported by several business groups, is calling on the government to strictly implement a national transport policy that prioritizes people over cars. The group said the Philippines must also join the global shift to clean energy vehicles, increase the use of green electricity generating plants, and expand a public park system. ECQ is expected to end by August 20, but it's still uncertain whether or not the capital will ease restrictions by then. With a return to stricter curbs, are businesses finally grabbing the opportunity to avail loans? So let's find out from the financing arm of the Trade Department, Small Business Corporation. We have on the show their consultant, Alvin Limlingan. Good morning, Alvin.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us. So, okay, 1 week into ECQ, are MSMEs finally tapping on interest-free loans here from SB Corp?
Well, it's hard to measure how many applied in the last week. However, if you want to take a step back and look at applications for the whole period till August 10, we've had about 50,000 applications, and of those, about 30,000 have been approved. So I would think that's a tremendous pickup in
Mm-hmm.
interest in our programs.
But would you say at least that given the return to ECQ and the uncertainty whether or not restrictions will be eased, will somehow push MSMEs rather to apply more to apply for loans?
Oh, definitely. I think, well, we've had several ECQs, and with the benefit of looking back at the full effects of the last one, you can see that it's had a tremendous detrimental impact on businesses. They simply can't operate. A lot of our small businesses don't have the capital that many large players do. So definitely they'll be affected, and definitely they'll have to search for cost-effective financing.
Which can you give us a better idea here, a clearer picture from which sector comprises at least a bulk of these applications?
About 80% of our applicants are services and trading. And I think that's consistent with the profile of many small businesses. We don't have that many manufacturing, for example, because to manufacture something, you need, a factory. And that sort of makes you medium sized, if anything. No?
Mm.
Most of these are small entrepreneurs. Think someone with a parlor, think someone buying and selling on Lazada. So these people, operate at very tight margins in a very competitive market space. So we'd like to help these small businesses as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. Now, can you give us any idea as well? What's one of the major points as to why do you think some companies are actually hesitant to avail these loans?
Um, well, these are loans and they have to be paid back. So we have cases where people are not borrowing because they don't see the demand coming back. If you're in an industry, I don't want to name specifics at this point because it might be sound prejudicial. But if you're in an industry where you don't see business coming back, and I think you can think which ones these are, then you might be hesitant to borrow and stock up on inventory or open to cater to something where the demand is not there. So that would be their greatest hindrance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, given that, of course, there's like what I mentioned earlier, there's still uncertainty whether or not ECQ will indeed be lifted by August 20. Would you say then that this at least would somehow warrant additional funding here?
Well, um, we're a government agency, and our government has many um, has many challenges at the moment. I mean, we need funds for so many activities, and it might be presumptuous on my part to say that we deserve more funds than maybe another activity. But what I will say is that we're doing a tremendous social good. Small businesses are the driver of the economy. The bulk of Filipinos are employed in small businesses, and every peso spent on small business creates a tremendous multiplier return. So, government funds allocated to lending to small businesses play a very significant role, play a disproportionately good role in enhancing economic activity.
Hmm. Now, also, I do believe that SB Corp has a plan to launch a financing program targeted for small food firms. Can you tell us more about that?
Okay. Um, this project, this program is called Project Staples, and it's a tie-up with top 1,000 FMCG food manufacturers. So these are companies that have 100,000 online sari-sari stores. And again, the most important uh, feature here for us is by tapping into the databases of these large FMCG food firms, we're able to get a sense of the sales of the SMEs. And because of that, we can estimate them and determine their credit worthiness. So these are short-term loans if you qualify. So the smallest tier is a small sari-sari store, and um, you need about 500,000 in sales, and we can lend you about 2% of that for 3 months at zero interest, but with a service fee of 3%. And that scales upwards. So if you're a big sari-sari store with a minimum sales of at least 2 million, we can lend you 2.25% of that, payable over 4 months. And if you're a large grocery, um, with sales of about 20 million, we can lend you 2.5% of your total sales, payable over 6 months. So these are short-term loans. So the idea is you use these funds to um, buy inventory. Presumably, you'd sell it in 1 to 2 to 3 months, and then
Mhm.
once you sell it, you use the proceeds to repay the loan. So it expands your business activity.
Okay, one other option there, at least for our small businesses here. But Alvin, this time around, I would have to ask you to wear a different hat here. Let's talk about FilREIT. Again, the stock at least so far doing good this morning. Price of 7 pesos a share. That would. What's your comment on that? Is that reasonable enough?
Um, yeah, given the prevailing mood, you have to think that these are office renting office space, and
Mhm.
um, I think the office market is going to change in the medium term. I mean, if anything, this pandemic has shown us that people can work from home, and people can work from remotely. So um, long term, we're not too clear about how strong. I mean, how the office market will settle down after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Now you have more offerings coming in, at least for REITs. You have RL Robinson's Land, and there's also Mega World. What's the best way to position here?
Um, well, uh, I think you have to look at each one on the basis of its merits. Now, a REIT is basically a portfolio of assets, and you have to ask yourself, what is the probability that these assets in that portfolio will appreciate over time and continue to have demand for? So certain assets will probably be more desirable than others.
Mhm.
Um, with online shopping, you have to ask yourself, will shopping malls be as attractive? Uh, I mean, they may be able to reinvent themselves as food, basically dining establishments, but how will lifestyles change as a result of the pandemic?
Mhm. All right. Thank you very much again for your time and your insights this morning. Thank you for being candid as well about that. You have again SB Corporation's consultant Alvin Limlingan. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And that's a first look into the business day this Thursday, August 12, 2021. Catch Business World Live for the market close at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.